It's really hard to believe that was 5 years ago. So we have a skeleton crew here tonight, apparently. Uh, so it was 5 years ago that, give me 1 second, let me pull this up.
Well, I was just thinking, Kelly, that it's been 10 years since I visited Julian in the Ecuadorian embassy. You know, I'm finding that hard to believe. And I remember when I was there, thinking that at that point he'd been in the embassy for what, 2 years at that point? And I remember thinking, how could someone, this is insane. And then now here we are 10 years later. But like you said, it's been 5 years since he was put in Belmarsh.
Yep. So this was actually, if you can see it, it's on my Twitter, pinned at the top, was a candidate panel I did 5 years ago. And there's one candidate here, Jeffrey Young, that did win his primary in 2022 in Kentucky. He said he was coming, but I'm not sure if he is. And that's okay. I've got some good clips to play. Maybe he'll show up in a few minutes. And we had two others, another candidate and a new candidate in Kentucky's 2nd District, a Democrat, and others that are interested couldn't come this week, are interested in coming later. But then I had one also in Maryland. I believe it was Maryland's first. So maybe they will show up, maybe they won't. But I kind of have to point out that, I've been methodically going through Ballotpedia, and I jump around, of course, when I see people, that I think might be a candidate for Assange. But, I've been going through Ballotpedia, and let me tell you, Maryland. So, I think I want to play this right now because I think it illustrates exactly. I can't get anyone in Maryland. One, I think, maybe next time. But okay, here's Kiriakou.
I've maintained from the very beginning it's not possible for Julian to get a fair trial in the Eastern District of Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia. They call EDVA the espionage court for a good reason, because that's where most espionage cases are tried, and it's because no national security defendant has ever won a case there. They charge stack, they add felony upon felony upon felony, and they venue shop, and they charge people in the district where they're most likely to be convicted and the most likely to receive a harsh sentence. That's what they've done in this case.
Yeah, so that's going to be, the jury for him if he's extradited, are those people that live there. And let me tell you, they're not too friendly. But anyway, before we we're going to bring Chuck on, who is with New York City NYC Free Assange. But I wanted to just show this again. We're stuck. I don't believe, unless something happened in the last hour, Cori Bush was the last to sign House Resolution 934. So I know a lot of people are still working really hard to call, and I encourage everyone, please keep calling. There's still several people that signed that McGovern letter that haven't signed this House resolution yet. So hopefully they will. But okay, so we will move on to, and this is Chuck. And let's see, let's see. Sorry, I want to pull up your NYC Free Assange, so give me a second. But I'll let you, why don't you go ahead and start, Chuck, and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Chuck Slatkin. I'm a founding member of NYC Free Assange. Actually, it began in the beginning of May of 2019. There was an International Day of Action to free Julian Assange that took place in front of the British consulate in New York City that I attended along with a few other people, Bernadette Evangelist and some others. And we just decided at that time, well, what is standing here one day going to do something? I mean, really, if we're going to try and do something, maybe we should, come out every week, which we began to do, and carried signs and handed out flyers, interacted with passers-by, talk to them about Julian Assange, and we did that for some time, and then we figured, well, maybe we needed to go to a more populated place than where the British consulate was. So we then switched over to doing it in front of the New York Times building. At that time, New York Times did not have any kind of a positive record about Assange.
Right.
We thought it was important to just notify people and to have a presence for them in front of their building. So people would come out, people who worked there gave them a literature and whatever on behalf of Assange. Somewhere along the line, we decided, well, maybe we needed to get a name for ourselves. So that's when we became NYC Free Assange, because in our minds, we were grassroots, local people trying to take a stand here. We didn't have any desire to form a large organization, a national organization. Actually, we were there at the beginning. We were one of the people that came together that eventually Assange Defense, which became a national organization, was formed, and we were affiliated with them. But I mean, initially, we understood when we were out there, we were really there to educate people. Because at that point, in 2019, people had gotten this narrative about Assange. People would come up to us yelling and screaming at us, not even really being able to articulate clearly what they were upset about, other than this was some kind of a rapist who, stopped Hillary Clinton from getting elected president, and how we out there, dealing with that. It was, so we knew we had our work cut out for us to just educate people, get them in conversation, give them information, and let them understand, who Julian Assange really was, and why these actions were being taken against him. So it took time, but over a period of time, we began to see the change in people responding to us in a more positive way. We basically, stayed out there until COVID hit. That was not the time to be out in the streets, dealing with people. But we stayed active. We, had to put together a website, and then we would have, actions when necessary to get people out there and mobilize around, freeing Assange. And then other organizations and groups around the country formed, other local groups like ours, national groups and whatever. And we were there to work with everybody and anybody, because we didn't have a list of, well, you have to agree on these 13 positions.
Right.
You were for freeing Assange. We didn't care what the rest of your politics were. And that really, worked very well in terms of, growing our numbers, and the fact that we drew all kinds of people, because the appeal that Assange had for who he was, and then what was being done to him, and what that meant to just, free speech and exchanging ideas, really appealed to people. So that's how we got involved, and we had events, and eventually, then when the weather got bad and whatever, we then moved inside Grand Central Terminal in New York to reach people there. But we've been putting on special events. I guess the last one we did, it was all around working on HRES 934, trying to get people out with that. And
you guys have had some really big ones. You had one, gosh, I forget, December maybe of 2022, I mean, where Roger Waters came out, and the German woman, I've forgotten her name right now. Anyway, and Joe Loria was there, Max Blumenthal. I know that was a really huge crowd. And do you think you're are you getting yelled at less? I mean, do you feel like that, you know, the guy, Matt Brannon, I believe is his name, the orange jumpsuit guy?
Yeah.
He said something really interesting when I spoke with him. He was able to attend the hearing remotely. And he said that he found now, as compared to a couple of years ago, that people were basically kind of a blank slate because the media had gone from smearing Assange to silence. So
Right.
he said that that was actually an improvement because he was, you know, you had some. Do you think that's, if you found the same?
Oh, yeah, that was. I mean, as I said earlier, people were angry at us, and they really couldn't even articulate why. They had just gotten this narrative: Assange bad, anybody for Assange equally bad, whatever. But as things went on, and people began to engage with us, got information, whatever, it changed. It went from neutral to the point of, you know, people feeling, you know, good about being out for Assange, and so it really changed, you know, miraculously in a sense.
That's amazing. I mean, I know you and Bernadette have just been tireless at this, and I know Randy's been involved with a lot of your actions too.
I mean, I've seen that with I've had the same free Assange cert for however long, and you know, like you're saying, Chuck, back in 2019, if I wore it, I'd have to tell myself as I went out the door, if someone says anything, you're just going to smile and maybe give them the peace sign and move on, right? And now I put it on and I look forward to running into people because I'm out walking my dogs. People honk and they wave. You know, I mean, like, you know, people are supportive of Julian, or to your point, it's become a blank slate, and the silence has created this ability to educate people about it.
Right. Yeah, when we were out at the overpass on I-40, Daniel DeCedar and Ray McGovern, some others, we got a lot of honks, like, and, you know, and good honks versus, I think it was 2018. I was in front of the British embassy and people were driving by and yelling out the window, "Kill him."
Right.
I just couldn't believe it. So I guess that is improvement. Although I have to say, I mean, it's wonderful to sit here and talk to you too, but I'm a little discouraged that the candidates didn't show up, but maybe there's another reason, but I know that, you know, everything's politicized, and the Democrats are particularly hard to get on board with this.
Well,
but
okay, don't worry about it, Kelly. You've been, if people don't know, Kelly and I have been doing this. This is like our 12th one, I think.
this is the 9th one.
9th one, okay. But anyway, we've done 9.
We've got 22, I think 22 candidates.
Yeah, usually we have at least 2 candidates. Sometimes we've had 4. I think maybe we never have 5. But I mean,
I think the first one we did.
Okay, this is just how it goes. You know, sometimes, you know, and so but what Kelly does is, Kelly, for people get an appreciation for how much Kelly works at this. She spends the entire week prepping for this. She's got the videos. She's catching up on the news. She's making sure, like you just heard her say, well, unless there was a change in the last hour, there's only still 9 co-sponsors for HR 934, right? So she's doing all that stuff. But then also, too, she's going through Ballotpedia. And she's contacting about 100 different candidates a week.
And I get,
come on. So it's still, it shows you what type of, even though, like as we were discussing, the public opinion on this, it's still politically, you know, Julian is still a third rail, if you will.
Absolutely. And I actually did. I'm a little surprised too, just because of what we just heard Biden say. That was yesterday. Here's the clip.
President Biden, do you have a response to Australia's request that you end Julian Assange's prosecution?
I didn't hear you.
Do you have a response to Australia's request that you end Julian Assange's prosecution?
We're considering it.
You're considering. Do you have a response?
Sorry about that. I didn't know it was going to just perfectly cover you there, Chuck.
Okay.
It's just, you get the feeling he's in charge of anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's pretty frightening that that's the president of the United States. Every time I see it, But he did say it. Did he mean it? Did he know what he was saying when he said
Right.
it? Who knows?
Was it just a non-committal, vague
Mhm.
non-answer? But you do have to say this: he didn't say no.
Right.
He didn't
Right.
say no. So I think at least we can hold on to that for whatever it's worth, as you just said, Chuck. Because
Mhm.
but at least it wasn't a firm no. But I'm also in the camp that I don't know if he knew what was even being asked of him.
But it was an
Right.
international news story. It got coverage everywhere around the world, which is,
Right.
fighting for Assange. That's always a positive when you can get
Right.
some coverage.
And the White House, as far as I know, the White House has not come out and said no, that the president, was not
But
clear.
they have. Did you see this just a couple hours ago? Well, here, I'll just play
See,
it.
this is what Kelly does. She keeps us, she does the hard work and keeps us honest.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. President Biden said this week that the U.S. is considering Australia's request that it drop its extradition attempt against Julian Assange and instead allow him to go back to Australia. Normally, when we ask about Assange, you say, refer you to the Department of Justice. But now that the president has said that there are diplomatic talks going on, that seems like it would be squarely in the State Department. So is the State Department involved in these conversations with Australia? What can you tell us about these talks?
That is a good way to try to get me to violate that rule about not commenting on extradition matters, but I'm going to refrain from doing so. I don't have any comment. I would refer to the Justice Department for comment on this.
Does it broadly raise concerns for you about free speech and free press issues? You often will see dictators say, why is the U.S. lecturing us about press freedoms when they're trying to extradite a foreign citizen to their own maximum security prison?
So I will let the Justice Department largely speak to this issue, but as you've heard me say here before, one of the crimes that Julian Assange is charged with is helping Chelsea Manning hack into government systems, not receiving classified information, but helping her actually break into government systems to retrieve classified information, which, as far as I'm aware, has never been considered a legitimate journalistic practice, and is not the kind of practice that journalistic organizations typically engage in.
Well, technically, he offered to help her cloak her identity so that she wouldn't be discovered. We as journalists do that all the time with sources talking on Signal and other devices to try to make sure that sources are protected. Is that considered helping?
So I am now a little bit, but probably further than I ought to go, about facts that still are contained, or alleged facts that are contained in a pending indictment. Go ahead.
Sorry, the volume was low. Last minute clip. I hope everyone could hear that okay enough. And I usually put the subtitles, but it is interesting that he actually did say alleged at the end there. But that brings me to something else. Or you guys want to comment on that? And then I'll play something else. It's about the indictment and about saying that as fact. I don't know, anyone? You guys want to speak on what is that Matt Miller had to say?
I mean, Matt Miller is the same person who stands up there and says that Israel's not, has not violated international law, in the conduct of its genocide in Gaza. So, he's gonna say whatever is necessary for the moment for the government.
It's just sickening the way he's just smiling to me, just like amused by it. I don't know, just. But so this was from right after the last hearing, and hold on one sec. It's Craig Murray. And I know I said this another time when we were talking about the indictment, that they put the things in there about the, Assange being Nathaniel Frank, which, we've talked about this before. There's no evidence of that, right? But Craig Murray mentions that in this clip, and is kind of shocked, as I think most of us are. If you haven't been in a legal case and you don't know this, you assume that if a lawyer puts something is in a legal document, that they wouldn't just lie or make it up. But it's alleged, and I guess that's, I don't know, it's confusing. But here we go.
There's another interesting point that struck me in the judgment, where they're relating what events happened, not what events allegedly happened. They're not saying these are allegations. They're saying this is what happened, and this is why the charges are legitimate. And they state that Julian Assange, in a chat log, I'm not sure whether chat log is a correct description, but that's the description they were, in a chat log with Chelsea Manning exchanged messages, blah, blah, blah. But they say he did that, not that he was alleged to do that. And as far as I'm aware, it has never been admitted that it was Julian Assange on the end of a chat log. And I understand there's several possibilities within WikiLeaks as to who it might have been, even if it's admitted it was WikiLeaks. But they state as fact things which have not been proven as fact in a court of law and which are disputed by the defense. And that struck me as very strange.
Yeah, Chelsea Manning has never said that Nathaniel Frank was Assange, as far as I know. That was the name.
Right, we don't know that. And that's one of the things to be proven if there's a trial. But I would defend the court on this point, though, because for purposes of extradition, they have to assume these things happened because they're charged. So I think that's why the court speaks that way. I don't think the court is speaking that way to make a prejudgment. I think they have to. They have to accept that these things happened and they're being charged. I think they have to do that in extradition. So I would say they're probably not prejudging the facts. They just have no choice. They have to assume those facts are true for this purpose. It's a bit of a fiction. But.
A bit of a fiction. So, I mean, the way I see it, I mean, obviously, like, if you read the indictment and you don't dig in and, do it, all this research, and you think that's true. And then, of course, those things get repeated. Right. It's just maddening.
As well as the things that are left out, right?
Right.
In the comments that we can see here from Bram SL1, who Bram, you're on every time, so thank you. But you bring up the point that in the Matt Miller clip, talk about the hacking, and it's Chelsea Manning had access to all the documents, right, that were released. There's no hacking involved. She had access. But the way it is stated as fact, and the way that a lot of times the media then goes along with it or just regurgitates it, particularly without providing any of the defense's counterpoints, leads to a point where you've got a prejudiced public opinion based upon stuff that has not been adjudicated. Yeah. Right.
Repeat a lie often enough, and then that's what people believe.
All right. Chuck, so you what do you all have been doing? Do you have anything coming up in New York City in support of Assange? I know this is we've got the next hearing will be May 20th in the UK, but I was wondering if you all in New York City are planning on doing anything, because as Kelly said earlier, usually your events are some of the biggest we have in the US.
Well, we're just trying to decide what we should do next and where, but we definitely have something coming up in the near future. We haven't picked a date or exactly when or where we're going to do it, but we understand that it's important for us to, when we do it, to do something that we can, it's substantial. I mean, the last thing we had, Susan Sarandon came out, and that she draws a lot of media. So, and if we can, when Roger Waters gets back to the States, we can, call upon him once. So we were thinking in terms of doing something big there, but also something more mundane that everybody could do if they haven't done it yet. Is to call their representative on 934. I mean, it doesn't take more than a couple of minutes, and if you don't know who your representatives or how to reach them, you can call the Capitol switchboard, and I'll give you a phone number if that's okay.
Yeah.
02-224-3121, and just call up and speak to them and tell them, to support 934. And if they already have, call up and thank them, because that's an important thing to do. So while we're planning on our next event, we want people to make those phone calls, because it all works. But we're definitely planning on having something hopefully appealing and unique, because it's always tough to get the press out, no matter who we have out there or how good it is. International press, fine, they'll be there, we'll get great coverage. But breaking through locally in the U.S., it's always tough. We do the work, and hopefully, we'll get there. But
Well,
it's important.
for next week, it's the 16th, right? That they we've got a weird echo, I think, somehow. The 16th is when they have to present the assurances.
Right.
I don't know what the noise is there. Interesting. Okay. Is there anybody on? You had guys have anything playing?
Yeah, I just again about the assurances. What possible assurances could be given, and how legitimate would they be? I mean, it's really just the whole thing is a charade here about. It makes no sense. What could they do that would meet that criteria, and then would they keep it? I mean,
Right. They can just change it. Did you, Kathy Vogan, who I've played a lot of consortium news clips as well. I think they're fantastic. And Kathy Vogan, as you guys know, is the producer. We still have a weird echo. Sorry. And she's also just very knowledgeable on this case. So I've got another clip, and it's specifically about the SAMs, the assurances.
They decided to give the Americans another shot at these assurances. And this is the second round. There have been assurances already, which don't assure at all. But the testimony that you're referring to was from Maureen Baird. And Maureen Baird was an administrator of special administrative measures for the Bureau of Prisons. And that is the most awful form of solitary confinement, absolutely permanent, 24 hours a day. She herself makes comments about that she doesn't know how they continue to get away with it because it is absolute torture for these people. It's a tiny little cell with nothing in there. They've got nothing to do, and they never get out. Even if they get to do a little bit of exercise, it's in a very similar room that's just next to their cell. And so basically they're not going to see any more human beings except perhaps eyes in the door or a hand coming through a slit in the door to give them food for the rest of their days. It's been described as a metal shoebox. It was in re-examination that the really terrible answer, the answer that she gave, made my heart sink, because what he asked her was, who decides who goes under these special administrative measures? Is it the judges? Is it the Bureau of Prisons? No, it's the CIA.
Oh, and the CIA are literally, together with the FBI, are being accused of wanting to kidnap this man, to harm this man.
Right.
So Jeff showed up. Yay.
I'm sorry I'm a little late.
That's okay. I'm glad you showed up. I've got a 33-second clip, though, of Assange speaking on Assange Countdown to Freedom with Randy Credico about this. He knew what was possible.
It's possible, depending on the shifts in US politics, that I would be sentenced to death. Probably not. But that doesn't mean there's not a risk of a sort of living death. In the United States, there's something called SAMs, and for national security cases, terrorism cases, they put people in SAMs restrictions, which is you're in incommunicado detention. So even if you communicate something to the public through your lawyer, the lawyer goes to prison, and this has happened in the United States.
And the thing about with the national security SAMs is, of course, whatever the CIA and FBI advised the Bureau of Prisons and the Justice Department, well, that's going to be classified. So the rationale, the justifications for the SAMs won't ever see the light of day. You know, but this gets back to this whole idea of these assurances that are, first of all, the assurances, they can't even, how could they even provide them? Because you could have a different administration in power this time next year. So what assurances could be made that would be lasting?
Right. Well, Jeff was here for the first time I did this 5 years ago. I don't think I've seen you in 5 years. But isn't that really something, to think about Assange being in that cell for this long? Like, think of what's gone on in each of our own lives, or anybody watching this right now. 5 years. Like, it's just, but I will give you the floor. Jeff, do you want to jump in and talk about, why you supported him back then? And do you feel like anything's different now when you talk to people, in your district?
Well, I think the entire persecution or prosecution of Julian Assange has demonstrated that the legal system in the United States and Britain has simply collapsed. I don't think we have a functioning judicial branch anymore. Assange is being persecuted for practicing journalism. He's not even a United States citizen. He's a citizen of Australia. And the Espionage Act has been exhumed, and new life has been breathed into it by politicians. There's absolutely no basis for the entire, 10 years prosecution? In the US Constitution, there's no basis for it in the British legal system. The United States and a few allies are simply trying to gain control over journalism practiced anywhere in the world. It's outrageous. It's totally un-American. And I guess that's just, I can't believe that it's gone on this long. And that nobody has said, you have no standing to prosecute him. You just can't do that. And it's ridiculous. And I think it just shows that we don't have a functioning judicial branch anymore.
Do you find, running for office again, how many other candidates can you talk to about this? Or do you feel like, especially running as a Democrat, I guess, but how is that going?
Well, it's going fine. I've been running for various offices since 2012. So I'm used to being ignored by the media, and I'm used to having my own party rig primaries, one after another against me. So it's not any different this year. But no. So this year is a little different in the sense that there are more candidates running, mostly independents, third-party candidates, on the issue of the genocide in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And so here in Lexington and central Kentucky, there are 5 Democrats running and 2 Republicans. The 5 Democrats are all trying to unseat incumbent Andy Barr, who's just a typical far right wing pro-war Republican. And some of these Democrats, 3 or 4 of them are anti-war, anti-genocide, and that's very encouraging. A lot of young people are jumping in.
Mm-hmm.
I was at an event just now that where the most anti-war Democrat in the 6th district was doing a fundraiser, and I think she has a good chance of winning this primary on May 21st. So we can actually have another anti-war.
And who is that? I'm wondering if I've reached out to her and haven't.
Shauna Rudd is her name.
Yes, I did reach out to her.
Okay.
I tried TikTok as well because she's younger, and I know that's where they go.
Yeah. Right. So it's very encouraging to see, and it's all over the country. Young anti-war, pro-Assange people are running.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. I mean, I was very young in the 60s. I was like 12 years old. I didn't know anything. But maybe that happened then, maybe it didn't. But I'm encouraged by the number of new, unknown, regular people, young people running on a peace platform.
Yeah, we've had a couple great ones here. Independent, Green, Jose Vega in Brooklyn.
Oh,
and,
you're in New York.
Yeah, and no, I'm not in New York. I'm saying he was on one of our other previous panels. And then last week we had Chibu Assange. She's in Illinois, I think 13th district. She's a Green. But it is great. I mean, I love having everyone, all ages.
Mhm.
It's very encouraging to see that because, we have
Matthew, you've been a path-breaking challenger. Are you running as a Green this year?
No, I'm just Kelly's co-host.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah. So
that's good too.
But it's good to see you, Jeff, and thank you for coming on. And do you know Chuck Zlatkin? Chuck's with New York City Assange.
Very good.
Good to meet you.
Yeah,
well, I think every Democrat who's in the House or Senate should be challenged in the primary. So,
well, we were talking earlier, Jeff, about how we've all seen public opinion change on Julian Assange. What's it been like for you? Because you started running in 2012. I think you've run every cycle, right? Which is fantastic. We need your voice doing that. What's the evolution been like for you on this issue?
What has been what?
What's public opinion? Have you seen a shift in public opinion in terms of support for Julian Assange over the 12 years since you first ran in 2012?
Well, it's pretty polarized. The challengers, the pro-peace candidates are, in general, for having him, having all the charges dropped and having him freed like tomorrow. And for the establishment candidates, they just won't talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to tell if there's a trend, but I think.
What about among the public though? When you're out at an event, what kind of, have you seen a shift?
Most people I talk to don't have an opinion. I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer.
Yeah,
the issue is almost never brought up, which I think is really a shame.
Yeah, I think it's just hard to break through because of what happened in 2016, and so many people still think it has to do, the charges have to do with that. And so I don't know. I've had, I had a couple Democrat candidates along the way that seemed like they would come on. And I know one time somebody's campaign manager stepped in and said, no, you're not going to do that. So I guess they have to make a decision whether they stand up for it or they lose their funding. I don't know, but I don't know. I like to think that it's power in numbers and power in voices. And at some point, like, the amount of money doesn't matter, but maybe I'm just too optimistic, but I don't know. I think public opinion has changed, but I mean, you guys know running for office is a huge undertaking, and you commit to that. I don't know. It's hard to stick your neck out, I guess. As what was it? Phil said, no, you said to be the skunk at the picnic, and Phil Anderson, our regular candidate that comes on often, he says, no, we're the flower in the garbage dump. So That was a great clip.
Yeah, but that's also it's the perspective, though, right? You know, and so I think that's one of the things. So whether you're doing activism like Chuck or you're running for office like Jeff, that's what perspective are you bringing, right? Are you bringing the perspective that you're the skunk at the picnic, or are you the flower in the garbage dump?
Yeah.
I think I tend to be more of a skunk.
Well, as long as you don't mind doing it. I think since we're kind of slow tonight, I'm gonna play another clip I had it for last time, and it just this sort of conversation sort of weaves around and didn't come up. But this is more to do with journalism, and this one is Stefania Marizzi, who's amazing. She was on the talk today that I listened to with some other people. It was great, but this was her on Randy's show on Assange Countdown to Freedom and talking about, integrity in journalism, because it's going to take that in that profession as well, because the candidates can't do this with a total media blackout and no one, on their side. But anyway, this is a great clip.
This is a monstrous injustice. Here you have a man, an innocent man, a man who caused no deaths, a man who has revealed war crimes, has revealed torture, and has never known freedom again. And on the other side, you have war criminals, you have torturers, you have people who killed extrajudicially innocent people. Please wake up. I have written a book which details the full story and which provide full reference about this case. I have spent 13 years. To collect all this information, to verify the documents, to get this information. All important media organizations are mobilizing. All important human rights organizations mobilize, from Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, all press freedom. So wake up. Don't allow this secret power to destroy this man and to destroy our ability to expose this dirty secret and people's ability to know about this dirty secret. Because this case is not just about journalists. This case is about the right of the people to know, And in a democracy, it must be possible for people to know. In a dictatorship, it's not possible. They kill you.
You're such a shining example of what a journalist who considers selling out can possibly do. And when they get to the end of their life, they can say, I did it right, and check out.
Yeah.
So many get sucked into the trappings of success and the ephemeral joys of success, that they just jettison any kind of ethics, any kind of morals, and they go for the quick buck. And they want to live that easy life. After going to journalism school, it's just amazing. You are, as I will repeat, a shining example. And I hope more journalists look at you, read this book, and maybe get a charge and do the right thing.
I just love that. And Randy, he's the same way, just tireless activism. But I wish we could live in a world where that journalism and candidates like you, Jeff, were held in high regard and successful, right?
Well, if I can say a little bit about the mass media,
please
I
do.
think when Russia launched its special military operation in February 2022, I mean, the propaganda was bad before that, but I think there was a giant step down in the quality of every mainstream media outlet in the country. It was like a step function. And suddenly everything was being presented from the Ukrainian point of view and the US and NATO point of view. And I've never experienced worse propaganda than I have between February 22 and today. And I lived through 9/11 and the so-called war on terror. It was pretty bad then, but I think it's much worse now. I would look at the local newspaper, the Lexington Herald Leader, every morning, and it was just everything from Reuters, LA Times. They would reprint complete lies about Ukraine. And I don't think it's gotten any better since then. In fact, with the latest fighting in the latest genocide in Gaza, it's even gotten a little bit worse in the last 6 months. I don't know. Have you all noticed that, or am I exaggerating the decline in media quality?
No, not at all. Chuck?
No, it's what we see all the time. It's I wouldn't say it's recent, but it's there, and it's as bad as it's ever been. I'll say that. But it's always bad. Trying to get the truth out about anything into the media is very difficult if it's not a truth that the corporate powers want the news media to carry, and that's what we deal with. That's what we dealing with Assange. Of course, when the big newspapers finally came out after all these years and called for the charges to be dropped, I would say, unfortunately, it had impact. It still has impact because there were people that we've been dealing with. When the New York Times had dropped the charges, then all of a sudden it was okay for them. So
right,
they're the problem, but the problem is also the fact, unfortunately, too many of our fellow citizens or possible activists go along with their narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for me, what I noticed was really it started with Trump in 2016, or that's when it really ramped up and got worse. And I think that just kind of, is it Matt Taibbi, I think, that said that Trump just broke people's brains, that it just, I don't know. And I think that everyone there, we consume media in these silos, and you can choose now what you can completely block out one side of everything. So I don't know. I mean, it's great that we have independent media, of course, that we've got options. But then I think there are a lot of people that maybe are still consuming the corporate media that just see all of the independent media, like Consortium News. They're phenomenal. Gray Zone News or Eisenhower Media Network. I mean, there's so many great ones, but those people tend to look at that like, oh, those are just YouTubers or something. There's still that sort of sentiment, and they won't give it the time of day. They don't know that Joe Lauria worked was it the UN? I forget. Was it the Times or the Wall Street Journal?
Wall Street Journal. I believe.
Wall Street Journal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are serious journalists doing real work.
It's not, and it's just not the silos working in the sense of that we are listening to only the things we agree with. We're only listening or watching or reading about these things that we're interested in. So when was the last time when was the last time you read a newspaper, right? And when we used to read the newspapers, you would get such a breadth of news, right? If you went from the beginning of the paper to the end of the paper, or like a lot of us, you start in the back, right? Because you read the sports first, right? But if you went through the paper, you got a whole breadth of news, right? You got a wide variety of news. You were reading about local stuff on the state level, stuff on the national level, foreign stuff relating to business, stuff relating to national security, stuff relating to culture, and now you only watch your your YouTube shows or listen to your podcasts that are connected to the things that you are most passionate about. And I'm incredibly guilty about that. I am, my podcast lineup is, it is foreign policy. And I mean, things could be happening in other parts of the other areas, and I have no idea. So, I mean, that's a real problem for us as well. How do you expect to know about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks if people are only listening to the things that they are most passionate about?
And also, how many people are doing journalism? Well, we're really is people who are doing commentary, right?
Right.
People aren't covering stories, or if they come upon something that a journalist would do where you would uncover the truth, well, if it's a truth that doesn't help their argument, they won't cover that truth. Well, a real journalist goes and gets the stories and says, this is what I'm supposed to do, get the news to the people. And we don't have that.
Right.
Matt Taibbi is one of the few
Mm-hmm.
that still practice journalism, but most of them are just, commentators, bloviators, or whatever. And if we like them, they say, well, we're like to hear, well, that's great. But how much real journalism is being done?
Yeah. Now, I will say this, though. Like, look at, say, the war in Ukraine or the genocide in Gaza, and where American public opinion is, right? And how American public opinion is against those wars, against the genocide. And you put that up against the fact that our corporate media has a very clear and dominant bias. Our politicians, particularly, say, in Gaza, are reading the scripts given to them by the Israel lobby. So the fact that a majority of Americans are against what Israel is doing, in spite of the fact that our major media and our politicians are pushing a pro-Israel narrative or pushing a pro-Ukraine war narrative, says a lot about the impact of independent media and the importance of independent media. And I think that is a direct result of what Julian Assange was doing in 2010. And it's also the reason why Julian Assange has been either held, in custody at the Ecuadorian embassy or in Belmarsh prison for the last 12 years now.
Like, you saying that made me, I had this ready to go too. This is that replica, the Belmarsh Live, where you can go in and sit. I'm sure you guys have seen this, Chuck. But yeah. Whoops. Well, I guess we're almost at the top of the hour here. I really wish the other two candidates had shown up, but that's okay. We did it anyway. And I'm moving on from Maryland. Hopefully next time. Well, Matt will be away next week, out of the country. And so we're going to be off next week. So they'll give me some more time, and I'll just keep sending messages and hoping that, the importance of freedom of the press breaks through to people. I think that when candidates are out there talking to people, maybe you can break through more than, because everybody's watching their own select media. Oh, I know what I was going to say about Gaza is that, it is, again, the young people, and this is why they wanted to ban TikTok, right? Because I know my daughter, she's 19, and, she does Instagram, TikTok, and she's pretty, in the know. She listens stuff I do, but on her own, but a lot of it came from TikTok, and she's pretty good at filtering out like what's garbage and what's good. And there was one particular young journalist in Gaza that was, I can't remember her name right now, Bassan, I think is it, but that's why they want to get rid of it, because they're not going to vote for the candidates that are supporting that are funding it. So they've got a real problem with that, which is very encouraging, I think. Yeah. So.
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time. I think, Colleen Rowley, I remember, mentioned this, like that we haven't had an anti-war movement in this country for a long time. And that's changing. Thank goodness. So, I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. Years ago, I didn't pay much attention, and I do now. So, yeah. So hopefully that will change things. So I thank you so much for coming, Jeff. And it's really nice to see you again. And I was just happy when I saw you won a primary. I was like, oh, that's great. Because I know you've been running for office for a long time. So,
tonight somebody asked me, what kind of trend was there? And I said, I just wore them out. All of the famous rich Democrats who were running in 2014, 2016, 2018, 2020, didn't feel like going through it again. And so I was facing an unknown candidate. And the whole party supported him, but it wasn't enough, So
the people in your district got to know you, huh?
Yeah, enough people did.
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting thing was that I did better in the rural counties of the 6th district than in Lexington. So my unknown challenger won Lexington, but I won all the 17 counties. There are a ridiculous number of counties in Kentucky. It's got more counties than any other state, and they're tiny, So I won 16 counties, and that was just enough. I got 52% to his 48. So,
wow, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Well,
I moved to. I'm gonna run in Louisville from now on, and probably move there.
Well, I'm going to play, I think I've played it twice before, but it was the musician David Rovick's birthday yesterday. And I saw his tweet, and he said he shared a birthday with Rachel Corrie. And he said all he wanted for his birthday was peace in Gaza. So I think we'll end with his song, the Kill the Messenger song. And so I would thank you guys for coming. And thank you so much, Chuck, for everything you do. And okay.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Jeff.
Wait. Hold on. Okay, this is really impromptu this time. Hold on. Oh, where did I put it? Hang on a second. I have too many clips. Here it is. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Back in 2006 was a matter of a password and a couple of clicks to safely send files and protect the source while sharing all the important bits, of course. With a database that's searchable all around the earth that exposed the rich and powerful, showed us what they're worth, showed us the corrupt ways they run affairs. From Iceland to the Indies to almost everywhere, making clothes transparent on emperors all round, everywhere that whistleblowers are to be found. WikiLeaks was too effective, it had to be beaten out. Let there be no doubt. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Ellsberg blew the whistle on war crimes. He called out for someone to step up this time. With WikiLeaks' assistance, when Chelsea Manning did on torture and mass murder, she blew the lid. And the war on WikiLeaks went into overdrive as the authorities tried hard to make sure it couldn't survive. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. With charges plucked from history, the Espionage Act is being used against Assange under the Extradition Pact. Not just Republican war criminals, but Democrats too had it out for him now. for telling what he knew when the DNC rigged the race. Got Clinton the nomination, put Sanders in his place. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Now they'll call him a foreign agent, say he should be shot. They'll call him a narcissist, whatever defamation they got. They'll say he's not a journalist, unlike the ones in Moscow, reporting on the criminals that we allow reporters to report on. We give them the Nobel, while this Australian is caged and sent to hell. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by,